In the stillness of a deep Scandinavian winter, a man sits in a room surrounded by wires, humming servers, and a blank screen. Outside, the snow is a silent ocean. Inside, the last seconds of his biological life tick away. But he does not fear death. He believes he will never truly die. His name is Anders Halvorsen, and he has just paid $200,000 to have his brain uploaded. Not literally, yet. But in his mind, and in the minds of a growing sect of technological believers, this is the bridge to immortality. A digital self, a map of synaptic fire, preserved until the moment consciousness can be reawakened, not in a body of flesh, but in a body of code. This is not science fiction. This is the frontier of science and philosophy and something more. Immortality, once the exclusive province of gods, myths, and alchemists, has become the next great project of engineers and futurists. But is it possible? More importantly, if it were, should we want it? To answer that, we must first understand what death really is and what life might become. For centuries, death was defined by breath, its cessation, then by heartbeat, then by brain function. Now, as medicine extends the borders of the dying process, we find ourselves in an era where death is no longer a moment, but a negotiation. Technologically, we resuscitate, we preserve, we freeze. Cryonics companies in Arizona and Russia have already stored hundreds of bodies in liquid nitrogen, waiting for a day when medical science might revive them. The heart no longer defines the line. The mind does. But here the question turns philosophical. What is the mind? Is it a soul, an emergent property of matter? An algorithm running on biological hardware? The philosopher would say, we do not yet know. The scientist would say we must try anyway. The transhumanist, the one with money and a countdown clock, would say we don't need to understand it fully to duplicate it. Let's begin there. The idea of technological immortality can be divided into three primary avenues: biological extension, digital uploading, and hybridization. Each one is bold, each one is flawed, but each one points toward a different kind of forever. Biological extension is the most intuitive. We try to halt, reverse, or repair the aging process. Every second, cells divide, DNA strands shorten, mutations accumulate. Aging is entropy wearing a human mask. Yet we now know that aging is not simply a matter of time, it is a program. Cells have built-in death timers called telomeres. Once they shrink past a certain point, the cell can no longer replicate properly. But what if we could reset the clock? In 2009, researchers won the Nobel Prize for discovering how the enzyme telomerase can rebuild these telomeres. In lab conditions, cells extended their lifespan dramatically. In mice, partial cellular reprogramming has reversed signs of aging. Muscles grow young, eyesight returns, fur thickens. And in humans, companies like Calico, backed by Google, and Altos Labs, funded by billionaires like Jeff Bezos, are investing heavily in reprogramming the aging cell. The goal is not to cure death, but to make it optional for those who can afford it. But extending life is not the same as escaping death. Every system, no matter how well maintained, must eventually fail. And so we turn to a more radical idea: digital immortality. If the brain is just a machine, albeit the most complex machine in the known universe, then perhaps we can copy its processes into another form. Upload the mind, bit by bit, neuron by neuron, into silicon, a whole brain emulation. This idea, once science fiction, is now an active area of research. Projects like the Blue Brain and the Human Connectome aim to map every neural connection, every spark of identity. But here we hit the great unknown. Even if we map the brain completely, will the upload be you, or a copy that thinks it is you? Philosophers call this the duplication paradox. If we upload your mind and destroy your body, the copy will believe it is you. It will remember your childhood, your secrets, your voice. But if we let the original you live, the illusion shatters. Now there are two yous. Which one gets to be immortal? This raises the deepest question in the immortality debate. Is the self something that can be copied, or is it inherently tied to its physical instantiation? Consider the ship of Theseus, an ancient thought experiment. If every plank of a ship is replaced over time, is it still the same ship? Now imagine the ship is your brain. Rebuild it in code, neuron by neuron. Is it still you? Some say yes. The pattern matters more than the material. Others say no. Consciousness is not software. It is the dance between matter and time. The answer for now remains elusive, and yet the march continues. Companies are already creating digital afterlives, AI avatars that mimic the dead, trained on their texts, voices, and videos. You can now talk to a synthetic version of a lost loved one. The illusion is crude, but improving. Some families find comfort. Others find it eerie, like speaking to a ghost of data. But ghosts, after all, are a form of immortality too. Then there is the third path, hybridization. Rather than replacing the body or the mind, this vision fuses them. Neuralink, the brainchild of Elon Musk, seeks to implant interfaces directly into the human brain, allowing us to think with machines, merge with artificial intelligence, and gradually transcend the limitations of biology. The idea is not to upload the mind, but to extend it. A new self, part flesh, part code. This approach is perhaps the most plausible and the most dangerous, for it opens the door to unprecedented control. Who owns the code that augments your thoughts? Who decides what information your brain receives? If your memories can be altered, are you still free? Technology can liberate. It can also enslave. Immortality, once purely spiritual, now becomes political and economic. For if only the wealthy can afford to extend their lives, what happens to the rest of us? A caste system of time? A future where the elite do not die and the masses become expendable? There are already signs. In Silicon Valley, billionaires fund secret labs. In Dubai, cryonics facilities open next to gold-plated hospitals. In China, AI surveillance tracks faces not to upload them, but to control them. Immortality is not just a scientific question, it is a societal one. But let us return to the philosophical. What does it mean to live forever? We assume immortality is desirable. But the history of myths tells another story. The Greek gods envied mortals not because of their power, but because of their impermanence. Mortals love more deeply, act more boldly, because their time is finite. Achilles knew this. He chose a short life of glory over a long life of obscurity. It gave his actions meaning. If we lived forever, would anything matter? Would love deepen or dull? Would we risk anything? Some philosophers argue that death gives life its shape. It is the frame that makes the painting possible. Remove it, and meaning itself may blur. Others argue the opposite. That death is a tragedy, a flaw in the code of existence, that our greatest moral obligation is to defeat it. The ancient Stoics taught us to accept death. The modern technologists want to annihilate it. Between these poles lies the most human of struggles. But there is another possibility, one more strange, more speculative. What if immortality is already here? Not in the form we imagine, but in memory, influence, recursion. We are born, we die. But our thoughts shape others, our code, biological, cultural, intellectual, replicates. A child inherits your laugh, a student remembers your idea, a sentence survives in a stranger's diary. Richard Dawkins called these memes, units of cultural transmission. The philosopher might say, immortality is not continuity of consciousness, but continuity of effect. This is a humbler kind of immortality, less flashy, less expensive, but perhaps more profound. Still, the dream persists. To walk among the stars not for decades, but centuries. To see history unfold, not as pages in a book, but as lived experience. To never say goodbye. The final chapter of this quest is still unwritten. Some say the singularity, the moment when AI surpasses human intelligence, will arrive within decades. That we will merge with our machines. That we will wake up one morning in a new body, in a new world. Others say this is fantasy. That consciousness is too entangled with biology. That the soul, if it exists, cannot be coded. But we are close to something. A new definition of life. A new kind of self. A new kind of death. And maybe, just maybe, a new kind of forever.